Hi there, my name is Amelia and I am the Widening Participation and Outreach Coordinator for Reed College, and I'm here today to give you some tips on fundraising. So as many of you may already know, we are a fee-paying school, and unfortunately for a lot of our students, what stumps them is they get accepted into our college and then they don't have the money to afford to come. Now, if you've watched our Why Choose Reed College or Frequently Asked Questions video, you will hear me talk about the bursary scheme that we have, which is available to all of our students depending on your household income. But regardless as to whether you can use that as a source of help or not, fundraising is something that everyone can do. So fundraising tip number one, it's going to sound really simple, but get a job. So if you're of age where you can get a job or get some form of part-time income whilst you're studying or on the summer holidays or at college, regardless of wherever you are, hopefully there are some opportunities around you that you can take advantage of to find some part-time work and start saving. And you should aim to do that as soon as possible, as soon as you find out that you've gotten into Reed. And actually with all of these fundraising tips, you should try and aim to do them as quickly as you can in order to save the most amount of money. Selling things. I know that we all have some amount of things around our home that we don't use, that we don't want, which would definitely be of value to someone else. You can do things like car boot sales if you have the resources, but if not, selling online, I'm sure as you all know, is a very popular way to sell things these days and a really good, easy way to make money. Also, if you have any skills, whatever skill that may be, no matter how random it is, see if you can capitalize on that to make profit. So if you can braid hair, if you can bake cakes, if you can carve things out of wood, whatever it may be, you will be surprised that people are willing to often support you and buy things from you if they know especially that the money is going towards a worthy cause, which it is. I did a cake sale actually when I was fundraising for Reed, and I did it with my friend and we just did it on her street, and then afterwards I had quite a few cakes left over and I just went round door to door my local neighbourhood knocking on people's doors asking if they wanted to buy any cakes. I didn't think anyone would, and I managed to raise £40. Bagpacking. Bagpacking is a great way to raise money. Now, the only slight difficulty with bagpacking is it's often an activity that supermarkets will only give to an organisation or a company. It's a bit harder to get as an individual, but it is possible. And backpacking, for those that don't know, is literally going to a supermarket and standing at the end of a till and offering to pack people's bags for a small donation. I emailed all my local supermarkets when I was fundraising for Reed, and one did let me, and I was allowed to backpack in their store for a few hours on a Sunday. I made myself a little poster so that people knew what I was fundraising for and was really friendly and really engaging. And whenever I've done backpacking for different fundraising events and organisations, I've usually raised between £15 to £20 an hour. Doing sponsored things, again, it sounds like a really obvious one, but it's such a simple thing that you can do to raise some extra cash. Whatever you are good at, or maybe it's probably better to do something that you're not good at because people are more likely to give you more money. Do a sponsored run, a sponsored walk, a sponsored cycle, a sponsored stay in bed, a sponsored silence. You could even do something like a sponsored dance-a-thon or sing-a-thon. Actually, that reminds me, another great way of fundraising is putting on an event in your local community if you're able to. If you've gotten into a performing arts college, that probably means you're half decent at performing, so why not use it to make some money? Put on a small show, whether that be a song cycle, or do some stand-up comedy, or do a dance piece, get some friends together if you can, and sell tickets and invite people along and put on a show in your local community or wherever you can. And once again, just always let people know what you're raising money for, because it makes them so much more likely to donate and probably give you a bit more. So, getting on to some of the things that you probably haven't thought about so much. Write to local businesses. Big or small, doesn't matter, write to them all. So this is something that is quite tedious and grueling, but it does pay off. I'm based in Northamptonshire and there's quite a lot of industry around here. So when I got into Reed, I looked up what all the big corporations were that exist within this area, and I wrote to all of them. Local businesses and local industries want to be known for supporting local people because realistically it makes them look good as well. Now, you have to be prepared to face a lot of rejection and also just to be ignored a lot. But to be honest, that is a great skill to have in our industry. I think I wrote to over 100 companies when I was trying to fundraise and maybe heard back from 4 or 5. But the ones I heard back from wanted to help me. So for example, being based in Northamptonshire, one of the big industries we have here is Silverstone Racetrack. So I wrote to them, and although they weren't able to give me any money, they were able to send me some signed merchandise that I was then able to auction off and use the profits towards my fundraising. So even if companies aren't always willing to send you actual money, they'll often send you something else that you can use to help you fundraise. Another thing that can be really, really helpful is looking into what local grant schemes are available in your area. Now, you're probably thinking, I live in an area where there is nothing like that available. I also thought this. But that's because you don't hear about these sort of things until you start looking for them. So in a lot of communities, there are organisations that have pots of money that are dedicated to helping young people progress in careers that aren't necessarily mainstream. So for example, things like performing arts, things like music, things like sport. So again, an example of this, of an organisation that I found local to me, was something called the Kettering Grammar School, which I had never heard of before, had no idea it existed. But once I found it, I was able to apply to them, and they were able to give me a bursary of over £3,000. These things do sometimes take a bit of digging out and looking for, but they are worth it in the end. And great places to start are, if you're in any kind of institution, whether that be school or college or a youth club, ask your leaders and your teachers at these places, as they'll often have a bit more insight. And if not, Google. Google is a great resource. Literally type in funding for performing arts in whatever your area is and see what comes up, and you'll probably be quite surprised by what you find. Another thing that Reed have done to help their students with this is they have compiled a list of all the previous places that students have applied to or asked for help with funding that have reciprocated and have been helpful. And if you do get in, and if money is something that you're struggling with, that is something that we can send out to you, no problem, so that you can start figuring out where to look. And last but not least, do remember that you can work whilst you're in training at Reed. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, all the Reed courses are very intense and you will be knackered. But if you have the determination and the drive, you can do it. I worked 3 part-time jobs whilst I was at Reed to help me pay my way through, and as much as sometimes it was difficult, it actually gave me a greater sense of security, because I wasn't panicking that I didn't quite have all the money that I need when I got there, because I knew that I was going to earn whilst I was training. Also, it's really important to remember at Reed that you don't have to pay all the money at once. I think sometimes seeing what the figure for the year is can feel really overwhelming, but you have to remember that you do not have to pay it all at once. You can pay it termly, and if that's still too much, it can easily be broken down into even smaller amounts. I actually did the quick maths, and if you work out how much it costs to come to Reed per day, if you get a 60% bursary, it works out about £16 a day. But when you think about it like that, it makes it seem so much more achievable. So I would say, do that with your fundraising. Whatever amount you know that you need to fundraise, break it down into smaller amounts that you can fundraise per month, per week, even per day. And before you know it, you'll have the amount that you need. So I really hope this video was helpful. If you have any more questions on fundraising, please feel free to have a look on our website, or you can contact us directly, because we never want money to get in the way of someone training with us, and we will do everything in our power to not let that happen. So if you have any more concerns or questions that you would like answered directly at the college, please feel free to email me at amelia.stevenson@reedcollege.org.